I want to ask you, how many of you are used to holding your threads when you start to sew? And if you are, I want to show you the tricks on the BERNINA 570 so you can eliminate having to hold these threads every time you start on a new piece of fabric. So first off, when you slide your fabric in, as long as you slide it in far enough that the needle will enter the edge of the fabric first, and not just in the air back here, you don't have to hold these threads. Now there's a few other things that make this possible. So number one, if I just slide my fabric in far enough, and here let's pick a straight stitch and just let that foot come down as long as I can see fabric underneath, which I can. Do you notice that thread doesn't go anywhere once I start to stitch? Now, as the machine starts and stops, and if we let the machine do it in the highest position, so utilizing the needle up-down option here, using the button here, or using the back of the foot control with your heel. Remember, if you rock your heel back, it will also take a half a stitch. If you look at your foot control, that's what this picture is about, to remind you that you can rock your heel back and that will take a half a stitch also. So the reason I'm talking about this is because so many of our students have still been in the habit of turning this hand wheel. So if you're over here touching this hand wheel, I'm going to guide you to stop doing that, and that will also eliminate things that might be troublesome when you start to sew. So here's what I'm talking about. If you just turn your hand wheel and you bring your needle up, but you haven't finished the stitch, like the take-up lever isn't at its highest position, then that can cause problems later. Now a solution is to touch the thread cutter, which also puts the needle to the highest position. What it's doing is completing the last stitch. So now when you actually go to sew, your needle's at the top. But for any reason that you turn this and it's not at the top, you lift up the presser foot, you take it out, and it's not where it's supposed to be, well, those are times where holding those threads when you start to stitch might be a requirement. But if you can eliminate touching this and utilize the buttons that are at your fingertips, so just go ahead and start to sew and let that needle stop at the highest position, or get in the habit of using your thread cutter, you will find that starting and stopping is going to be a breeze, and you'll notice that I rarely ever hold these threads when I start to sew.